We haven't seen full signs that the market has peaked in terms of mania yet. President Trump is just going to put this strategic reserve in, and if it materializes, it's going to go way more. There's no turning back. If US converts just 1% of their balance sheet into Bitcoin, and you know how much this would add to Bitcoin's market cap.
Welcome to another episode of So Let's Talk, where it's all about raw thoughts, unscripted content about market insights, business, and everything under the sun about investment. This week, I want to pivot a bit to talk about something not so conventional. We're talking about a new type of asset, cryptocurrencies. And today, I'm not going to do this myself. I have a very special guest with me. He's the CEO of Tokenize Malaysia, Wei Chi. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Frankie.
Right. The last time we spoke was 6 months ago, right?
Yep.
I still remember vividly that time. My last question was, where do you think Bitcoin is going to hit to, right? And at the point in time, Bitcoin price was about 70,000.
Correct.
That was before the US presidential election.
Correct.
And then, as you all know, it went up to all-time high.
Yep.
I think it went to 120,000, if I'm not mistaken,
120,
close to 120. But subsequently, it was just bloodshed.
Yeah, over the past few weeks, right?
Correct. For the past few weeks, I think from the all-time high until now, it has dropped about 30-ish%, right?
About there.
So let's address the elephant in the room first.
Right.
What do you think contributed to that crash?
Yeah. I mean, I think like the last time it was here, right? Bitcoin was hovering around 70 something, and then of course it had a bit of a shock crash down to 40 something because Japan raised its interest rates, right? And then obviously it picked up back. So first thing to address here is that volatility is no stranger to crypto, right? I think it comes hand in hand, extreme volatility, mainly because the asset class is still relatively illiquid, right? If you think about it, the whole Bitcoin market cap is always about 1+ trillion right now. 1+ trillion for Bitcoin. That's just equivalent to a massive stock in the S&P 500, maybe Apple, right? So it's still prone to a lot of swings and all that. But nonetheless, from 100 down to 70, still a big crash. A correction, a pullback. I think it's healthy, right? Because we've seen it just ramping up just before the election. A lot of big speculation about how the US is going to adopt a strategic reserve consisting of Bitcoin. You hear people saying that, coming up with theses like on Twitter and whatnot, saying if US converts just 1% of their balance sheet into Bitcoin, and you know how much this would add to Bitcoin's market cap. So it's crazy, such speculation driving the market up, right? But obviously, I think last week or so, we had that summit, Bitcoin summit, and well, we still have that Bitcoin strategic reserve. It's just not what most of the market expects, right? So I think that contributed to a bit of a reality check, right? Maybe this is not as hyped up as it used to be. Let's scale back and see what happens. I think this is just one factor combined with other macro factors that's going on.
Just now you mentioned that it is different from what the market expects.
Correct. Yeah.
So what did the market expect?
I'll give you a story. So just about a month back, right? I was out with some client, ultra high net worth client, trying to get him to onboard on our platform, explaining he's got his trusted advisor there, right? His trusted advisor, obviously both, very accomplished, highly successful. You'd think that, the way they operate would be more sophisticated, but you have an advisor there saying that, look, if President Trump is just going to put this strategic reserve in, and if it materializes, at that point of time, Bitcoin is already at 100K or so, right? It's going to go way more. There's no turning back this time. So this is, the sentiments, not just from every man of the street, but, it obviously penetrates way deeper. And you got to give credit to Trump because he's so convincing, in creating that impression that we are going to make Bitcoin an American asset, right? So what happened next was that, well, he didn't buy, right? I think obviously there are a lot of risks for America to buy Bitcoin. People were expecting MicroStrategy. People were expecting El Salvador, right? Stories of where the country goes in and then starts buying and buying and buying, and everyone be front running each other, and this would lead to be a crazy price action. But well, that didn't happen rationally, of course. So I think that was the expectation. People were expecting America to buy lots of Bitcoin, a couple of billions worth, the very least. But well, that didn't happen.
Well, so you are saying that the market is kind of disappointed. They think that the US may buy more Bitcoins to build up the reserve.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what they did was they just hold on to the existing Bitcoins that they have, where they confiscated from all the illegal activities in the past, put them in the reserve, right?
Yep.
But okay, so this is my opinion, right? I think that's a good start. The
Right.
fact that US acknowledge that Bitcoin is a legitimate asset that can be put into the strategic reserve,
Yep.
that also sends a signal to the rest of the world that perhaps one day, if the rest of the world think that this should be an asset for you to keep as your strategic reserve, potentially demand can come out as well, right?
Correct.
I mean, if you think about it, how gold become the asset that it is today, it also kind of have a similar narrative.
Correct.
So in my opinion, I think the market overreacted.
Correct.
But it is still kind of a Wild Wild West kind of asset. So little bit of news will trigger
Correct.
a very how to say, overhype the
Correct.
situation, and therefore we see the drop lah.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, bearing in mind, like, if you take equities, for example, right, if there are rumors spreading about a company and all that, a company rep can always come up and clear the air, right? As for Bitcoin, there's no company rep to come up and make a clear stance, what's the roadmap, right? So I think with that, it's just fueled by investor sentiments. And if everyone has this echo chamber, is in this echo chamber saying that, this is going to happen, but when it doesn't happen, yes, people get disappointed. But I agree with you 100% that it's a good step. At least it's being legitimized. Of course, pessimists are saying this left pocket to right pocket, changing labels. But I think labels mean a lot of things when it comes to accounting, right? So this is really already a strategic asset. It's also up to how the industry continues to build on this positive reputation. Like the America also owns this asset. When are you owning this asset, right? Where is your strategic reserve personally, right? So if the industry players make full use of this positive narrative, I think it will create a net positive impact in the long term, right?
Right. So we have come to close to a year since the first Bitcoin spot ETF has launched in the market. Do you have insights about like how many percent is the institutional investors own of all these crypto assets today? How is it going to change the dynamic of the cryptocurrencies? Is it going to be more stable and all that?
Yeah. Well, I don't have the exact numbers in terms of institutions around the world who have participated in the Bitcoin ETF, but I do have anecdotal comments or from business partners and all that, since we're in the regulated space. What has happened is that because now there's a Bitcoin ETF, now you have smaller funds, say for example in Malaysia, that wants to create a product, a Bitcoin fund product of sorts, a structured product. And a lot of them rely on the Bitcoin ETF, right? Who choose to put Bitcoin ETF as the main price benchmark for Bitcoin in terms of structuring their product for their own individual markets in smaller countries like Malaysia, for example. So I think institutional involvement is definitely ramping up because the leading asset manager in the world has created a massive product.
Right. Well, in my opinion, that the institutional adoption seems to be less than my own expectation.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, if institutional adoption is high enough, this kind of US strategic reserve not buying up more Bitcoin will not have such a big impact on the price. That's my opinion.
That's also very true. But I also think that institutional investors are more level-headed. I think they probably take years horizon, right? They look at this asset class in terms of years. So they've always had dynamic buying, right? I think they wouldn't buy and try to hold on, maintain the price. In fact, given that institutional involvement is quite a relatively new narrative, right? I think an institutional trader or a fund manager who operates based on protocols would be hoping for more crashes. If the fundamentals of Bitcoin is intact, which is like this is a powerful network of its own, sovereign, not belonging to any country. So I think fund managers would always prefer if Bitcoin price would keep having this shock crashes for a bit, so that there's a chance for accumulation. That's my thoughts on that.
Right. There's also some controversial conspiracy theory out there that there are certain parties who are trying to press down the Bitcoin price so that they're able to pick up some Bitcoin at the low and then only let the market bull run for the second
I think
round.
that happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
In most markets. I think when it's it's the fairest game in the planet, right? You know, we talk about investing or trading in particular, and this asset class is accessible to everyone around the world. Bearing in mind, so much liquidity around the world, anyone could be doing something, trying to game something towards their favor. But whether it is successful or not, that remains to be seen. Always,
Yeah. Okay. So in every crypto cycle, I noticed that there's a narrative in that cycle. So the last cycle, we were talking about DeFi, right? Decentralized finance. We're talking about NFT, right?
Correct.
All these are all the keywords in the last cycle.
Yeah.
What do you think will be the narrative for this cycle?
I think we've seen some inklings of narratives over the last 1 year that led to Bitcoin going up to 100K. Two narratives which cannot be more further contrasting than each other. One is the meme coin, right? All these Joker coins and all that, low cap, you know, could be zero one day and a couple of billions even USD within the next week, right? That is one crazy narrative. That is literally backed by no fundamentals. It's just purely madness. Then you have on one more hand, which is a really mature look in terms of the crypto blockchain technology, which is RWA, or to those who are not so familiar, real world assets, right? So we've had financial institutions talking about how they could just leverage the technology and convert existing traditional assets like equities, bonds, or even treasury bills, put them on the token, right? And look at it as more of an infra play rather than just a speculative asset. Because the underlying asset is still a traditional asset, but we're leveraging the technology. And I think this has more leg to grow because this is more fundamental, right? We're not just speculating about the fact that this coin can go to what and what. If anything, if any coins like Ethereum, Solana, if they should go up higher, it's because their network has grown more valuable. Their network supports more use cases, right? Which is why I think the RWA narrative and all that has more leg room to grow, provided if institutions have that political power within them to make those changes, right? It's like converting from diskettes to USB or converting from physical storage to the cloud, right? It takes a lot of willpower within an organization to say, okay, let's make a shift.
Right. Yeah. Is this the reason why there's a slight difference in the strategic reserve in the US today, where before the election, everyone was just saying, oh, Bitcoin is the one that should be the strategic reserve asset. But when the real announcement came out, it was more than Bitcoin. You have all these meme coins, or rather the not mainstream Bitcoin kind of stuff.
Correct.
You have Solana, XRP, and Cardano, that kind of stuff inside.
Yeah, I like how you put the Cardano. I like how you put like XRP and all as meme coins.
well, to me, anything that's not Bitcoin is meme-ish lah. That's me lah.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that. I tend to agree with that. But however, I guess for the sake of where most people categorically define it, meme coin would be like totally like Doge. Represent nothing. It's meant to build community. That's all. But if you look at Ethereum and XRP, it is not as centralized as Bitcoin, I guess, right? And its growth depends on its utility. So at least there is an element of utility. But how the market would react or use the utility is still a lot more room for improvements. Right? I think we haven't hit mass adoption of blockchain yet. So I guess given that America is trying to not just push Bitcoin but also push the industry as a whole, the blockchain industry, it has to put in some of these tokens that has potential use case. Right. This use case are just, of course, demonstrated in the form of RWAs, tokenization of assets. XRP, right, is a remittance protocol, allowing people to send money quickly, much faster than Bitcoin or anything else. Yeah, so it has to also, I suppose, bet on this, right, or take a view that these things could be huge one day. Yeah.
But I still have this question in mind, right? I mean, strategic reserves supposed to be assets that are stable, so that in times of emergency, you can look into your reserve and say, I have all this backing that is quite stable. Now, Bitcoin makes sense because there's 21 million, it is finite and all that. But when you talk about the rest of the other stuff, I just couldn't brain it, like, why do you put the other 4 in it? And I think there are also a lot of arguments, debates within the US itself as well. Like, why are you putting all this in?
Yeah. I guess the most popular answer to that, although this has not been verified by anyone, if you look at it optic-wise, XRP, Solana, and all this, apart from Ether, these are very largely known as the American products, American digital products, right? So Like I said, I think Trump would have to support his own countries, his own society's blockchain innovation, right? So therefore, it's in the basket. But also, perhaps these are also for features, right? So the fact that he doesn't have to buy anything, right? I believe the market thinks that Trump not buying any more Bitcoin for America is bad news. But I beg to differ. I think that could be worse news. The worst news is that, all right, we're going to liquidate everything that we have right now, and then we'll only come back when we think the time is right to buy.
Okay.
I think that would spook the whole market, right? I
Right.
mean, they have a couple of hundred Bitcoins there, right? A few thousand Bitcoins. They could be selling everything right now and saying that, okay, when the time is right, we'll buy. I think that would shake the whole market's confidence. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So in the blockchain, right, you need to control 51% of the coins. Then you are able to make some changes in the
For proof of stake coins.
Correct.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So this is my thoughts. Right now, you have the world's largest superpower, economic superpower, US, holding it as a strategic reserve. There's a chance that other countries in the world may say that, hey, this is a good move. We may also want to include Bitcoin as a strategic asset of my coffer. Now, we also know that in the political world, there's a lot of alliances.
Yeah.
You have NATO, you have all sorts of things, right? Yeah. What if all these countries, if they set up their own strategic reserve with cryptocurrencies, and then all these big superpowers, they add up together, potentially it could reach 51%, right?
It definitely will, right? And that probability is real.
Yeah.
Right, of course.
So is that bad for the whole
I mean,
crypto
if you
industry?
look at so the most valuable asset in crypto that would be prone to such would be, say, Ethereum, right? Because it's proof of stake and all that, and buying it up. But I suppose it's probable, but not likely to happen.
Not likely, no.
Because why would they want to do that? Because yes, you can control Ethereum and you can control the protocol, and then what? What are you going to do with it? Unless Ethereum has the network, the underlying network of Ethereum is serving banks, serving the public, and like you cannot live without this network, then there is an incentive to control majority of it. But why do you want to control 51% of something that is, honestly, you can still live without? It's not like tomorrow there's no Ethereum and then you have no more job. Maybe I would I would lose my job, but not you, not for the rest of the world, right?
Right. Okay. So do you think Malaysia will go that far and say that, hey, perhaps this is something that we should also consider, starting a strategic reserve using cryptocurrencies?
I think, but in a very modest way. I don't think, of course, this is just purely my hypothetical thinking, right? Obviously, there's no news. And we know that Malaysia has been always very conservative. They know that by saying these things, the population would react and try to rush into Bitcoin. So I suppose the government or the powers that may be, MOF and all that, wouldn't say such things. But if you talk about in the span of next 10, 20 years, is there a potential? Yeah, why not, right? Because we would have gone much more mainstream, right? This asset would probably be in 50% of the population's hands before. Same theory, for features and all that. And I do know, of course, the government would have some for features in crypto assets, right? It will be gullible to think they don't. So yeah, they could just convert it. Actually, it's much more possible than one thinks.
Right.
Yeah.
In Malaysia, what I noticed is that the crypto industry is developing faster than the adoption of crypto. So today, well, the last time we spoke, I think there are five crypto exchanges. I think today there are 6.
Yep.
Right? Today there are 6. You also have crypto funds today in Malaysia.
Yeah.
But having said that, if you ask around, right, I don't think the adoption is that much of a change compared to the last time we spoke 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But having said that, the development is there, and there is really a real potential that crypto assets in Malaysia will grow to something really, really big. But just now you mentioned 10, 20 years as the horizon that may reach there.
Yep.
But what are the challenges you think Malaysia is going to face in this journey, in this 1 to 2 decade journey?
So I think we don't have any issue with innovation here. If you talk about crypto or blockchain from an unregulated perspective, you're building software, is blockchain related and all applications. I think we have some of the more popular companies in the industry based out of here from Malaysia, in fact, run by Malaysians. if we look at it from an investment perspective, allowing investors to come in and all that, we got to bear in mind that for most parts, Malaysia has a lot of the boomer generation still controlling the wealth, right? And they are the people that are the most less inclined to take such risks. Right. So until we see a generational shift, which is why I say 10, 20 years, because we've got to let the whole generation to transfer wealth over to the younger generation. And the younger generation would then be more inclined to invest in these things, which has similar profile to digital startup, tech companies and all that are still on the private level, right? So I do think it'll take a whole generation. I think the appetite is there, the younger ones. But now let's say if we talk about wealth, right? And if you're a second generation, ultra high net worth, child of a big tycoon, you may invest a little bit, but I don't think you would have the full permission or the full mandate to make such, go all in on a bigger scale, take such risks, because your main business, would typically still come from the industrial era, right? Your main source of wealth, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that will happen, but it'll take some time.
Right. If you zoom out on a broader perspective, I think that holds as well. I mean, on a global perspective, you still have the boomer controlling the wealth. If they pass it on to the next generation, potentially we can see an even more exciting growth in the crypto industries.
Correct.
Right, correct. So, with that anticipation, what is Tokenize doing to prepare itself for that new wave of growth coming?
Yeah, I think for most parts, we are trying to grow along with the wave. So as of now, I think the retail investors, they need a lot of understanding in terms of not just the price of this token, because sometimes it's very hard to value the price of this token, right? There is no definite benchmarks to say that, okay, if this token network is this size, and then therefore the networks, each fair value of the token is how much. I don't think it works similarly like equities or other asset classes. What we're trying to do is in the next 6 months, we're rolling out new revamps in the platform, but we're also rolling out a more hands-on approach in terms of introducing investors from our base towards the companies or the projects that have their tokens listed with us. So for example, we're going to go on a roadshow spree. We're trying to invite some of these protocol companies or protocol projects that are maybe based over in the States, or do they have APAC presence, getting them over, have those investor roadshows as you have like in equities, these people will actually explain the roadmap in simpler terms, hopefully, so that the mass population who are our customers here and there, they actually have a chance to understand the project better. Because if you think about it, most exchanges, at least in Malaysia, when we list these tokens, they're available for investments, but how many people actually know the people behind these projects? As of now, of course, some argue it's decentralized, don't need to for any faces or what. But unless you're Bitcoin, right, there's still someone running it, and you're still soliciting investments or secondary trading of your assets and all. I think that there's a bit of a benefit to having a face there in a conservative country like Malaysia. Talk about your project, talk about how your project can potentially change the course of business or life or whatever. And then let the audience decide on that, research more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, like I mentioned just now, there are 6 exchanges in the market today, right?
Yep.
What do you think makes Tokenize different from the others?
I think it's the fact that when we all first started, it's quite the same, right? We were known as the typical vanilla trading platform, investment platforms. We all have an order book. What sets us apart initially is maybe different platforms have different type of coins, but I think those are low competitive factors, because over time, most platforms, once they all come to a level of operational capability, everyone would pretty much have the same set of coins. Fees has always been a sunset industry.
Always race to zero.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a race to zero. So it all boils down next to what unique value each platform can bring to the table. So there are several dimensions. Like Tokenize, I think we're trying to build a community. I think kudos to some of competitors that have done really well within that dimension, right? Building up a strong community of loyal customers. But loyalty has also got to be dependent on other factors to me. So as while building a loyal community, we're also looking at crypto financial service as a whole. Right now, it's just a platform allowing people to trade. But what if we introduce features that will allow our customers to save in crypto and earn yield from it? Given that we mentioned earlier that funds are now active, you have institutional players coming in to do all these products. We don't have to build it ourselves. We can always partner up with someone to build such products. So there is a bigger value proposition, a crypto-friendly financial platform. Yeah.
Well, you can have all these roadshow spree and whatnot to entice people to come,
Yes.
but I think at this point people still have that skepticism.
Correct.
What would you tell them? What message do you have for these people to at least bring them in and give it a try?
Yeah, I think for everyone, there's a different compelling narrative. But what I often tell, a lot of investors, because their first statement is like, this is all gambling, right? But they already invested in stocks and now, hence, they are potential customers of ours. But I would always candidly tell them, like, do you know every single detail about the company you invest in?
Likely
No, right?
no.
Likely not,
Yeah.
right? So if your objective is to make money grow, and take some risk in between, why not just explore this new asset class, right? Again, I think we've never actually explicitly asked anyone to go all in the crypto, but I personally think it's, if you can afford the risk a little bit, plus crypto is fractional investments, right? You can just make like 100, 200 ringgit average in. Why not take that risk, right? Because the track record is there. Yes, you have seasons of volatility, but it's always preceded by a new all-time high.
I actually know of people invest in cryptocurrencies, bitcoins, is for ESG concerns, right? Which is very intriguing, because a lot of people, they say crypto is very bad for the environment because you're mining, you use a lot of energy and all that. But actually, do you know that because when you mine oil and gas, you have this waste gas that you are supposed to flare it out, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually wastage. So what
Correct.
people do is that they install mining machines
Yep.
to mine those energy
Yep.
in order to let the blockchain run.
Yeah.
So if you think of that, then that is actually very ESG compliant compared to many assets in the world.
Correct.
So therefore, this person, this friend that I know, invested in Bitcoin simply because of that reason.
Yep.
And today he's making a lot of money, for sure.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right as well. You see, Bitcoin, first and foremost, I'm not an expert in ESG or whatever.
Okay.
But I think logic dictates, right, that if, let's say, ESG is a big concern, and rightfully as it should be, Bitcoin is neutral. The mining aspect of it is neutral. It just requires energy. That does not dictate what kind of energy has to go in, whether it's fossil fuel or solar or whatever. So if the price is good enough and the incentive is there, right, to attract people to figure out a way on how to mine Bitcoin more efficiently in terms of type of energy used, right? So I think in that case, you cannot say that Bitcoin is not ESG friendly. It is the miners. The miners should be the one innovating their industry as well. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So one last final question, and it will be the same question as the last time that we spoke, and it's a question that you tend to avoid and answer it in a diplomatic way. So, okay, now it's March, right?
Yeah.
What do you think is the outlook for Bitcoin towards
End of the
the
year.
end of the year? Yeah.
Again, not financial advice, but optimistically higher. We haven't seen full signs that the market has peaked in terms of mania yet. Yes, we've seen meme coins going high and all that, and it comes down relatively quick. But as we compare to previous cycles, you see, I've been through the cycle in before 2017, 2018, that peak of ICOs. Then we have the COVID pandemic mania. Manias are categorized by where every man of the street is talking about crypto. In every corner of any lifestyle hub you see, you have crypto events going on. I think we haven't seen that yet. Until we see that, then I think the market would be at that frothy top where it's going to come down and it will stay down for a while. What we're seeing here is massive volatility because of macro environment, trade wars, aggression. But good times will always happen, right, in the economy, right? There are always times like this, but won't last forever. There will be periods of, okay, finally we're all chill for a bit, assets would fly. Potentially, right, with a further rate cut, maybe that would be a catalyst. So year end, I cannot say, it's going to be 200K or what. I really don't know because we have hit our all-time high. But I think, we would still stand a chance to visit 100,000 plus again, and if peak mania happens, it could shoot Bitcoin up further, right? But whether or not it stays there for long, we wouldn't know. Likely not.
Right. Oh, can I rephrase the question a bit and ask, do you think we are at the low of Bitcoin price today?
Yeah, so I think we are at the lower range of things, and the only estimation that a lot of technical traders would also say, we are at a 200-day moving average and all that, we've slightly dipped below the 200-day moving average. So that would indicate that, I guess we are at the cheaper range. But of course, Bitcoin being Bitcoin, it tends to also spook people out further by going below than what most people expect before rebounding very quickly.
Right. One thing to see whether it is already low and is also is to look at the amount of leverage trades in the market, right? How is that situation today?
I think a lot of the leverage traders have been wiped out, right? Consistently because, and also apart from just being wiped out, I think most leverage traders are not participating because of the immense volatility. So even though if they take a daily view or a weekly view, they could be right. But in between, if the market could quite likely swing against them, which affects their leverage position, which they have to stop loss before resuming back into the direction. So because of the extreme volatility that we're facing right now, from 100 to 80 to 100 again, when I got the invite to this interview, I was like, hey, it dropped down to 80, but we're back to 90 plus. So are we having a conversation? And today we're back at 80, right? So it's shaking out leverage traders, which is a good sign, a healthier sign for the markets at least.
You're actually talking about me because I'm the person who was very actively trading in the market, but because of this volatility, this extreme volatility, I actually stay away from the market for a while, but keeping myself updated with the price trend and whatnot.
Right.
So thank you very much, Wei Chi. Thanks for coming back to the show today. We've got a lot of insights about crypto, about Bitcoin, the strategic reserve, the trend and the outlook for the crypto industries. Hopefully the next time we come back, it's not in the similar situation again, because 2 times you come, 2 times you're in a very bad market, right? So hopefully the next time you come on the show, we're at the all-time high, then we talk about what are the potentials from that
or
point
you can
onwards.
say that after my session, the market tends to rebound, right?
Hopefully. All right. Thanks,
All right.
Wei Chi.
Cheers,
All right.
Frankie. Pleasure's mine.
Thank you.